Hey everyone. I'm a photographer, always looking for interesting and, let's be honest, sometimes a little offbeat subjects. Well, a few months ago, I stumbled upon a grant that seemed almost too perfect. A month-long stay at Oakhaven Manor, an old Victorian mansion deep in the English countryside, to document its architecture and history. The isolation was a big draw for me, a chance to really immerse myself in my work. What I didn't realize was just how immersed I would become, and in what? Oakhaven Manor. Just the name sounds like something out of a gothic novel, right? And trust me, the reality was even more dramatic. The drive up was eerie enough. This long, winding driveway leading to this hulking, silent house that looked like it had seen far too many centuries. My boyfriend Daniel, bless his skeptical heart, helped me move in, but even he couldn't shake this feeling of unease. The place just felt heavy. Inside, it was exactly what you'd expect. Grand rooms filled with decaying furniture, dust thicker than a blanket, and this constant smell of damp wood and something else. Something almost metallic, like old blood. But as a photographer, I was in my element. The light filtering through those grimy windows created these incredible, haunting shadows. I started snapping away, documenting every cobweb and peeling piece of wallpaper. Daniel left after a couple of days, and that's when the solitude really set in. It was peaceful at first, just me and the creaks and groans of an old house settling. But then I started hearing things, faint scratching sounds, mostly from the floorboards above. I tried to rationalize it. Old house, probably mice, you know? But it always felt like it was just on the edge of my hearing, like something was deliberately staying out of sight. One day I visited the local museum and met this wonderful, slightly eccentric historian, Mrs. Albright. I asked her about Oakhaven, and her eyes just lit up. She told me about the Blackwood family who built it in the late 1800s, a history riddled with tragedy. A sick child, lost fortunes, and then these hushed whispers of a terrible accident in the West Wing. She even hinted at something unnatural. That's when a little seed of unease started to sprout into full-blown prickles on my skin. Back at the manor, things started to escalate. I was reviewing my photos one night, and in a shot I'd taken of a dusty old mirror, I saw something flicker in the background. It was indistinct, shadowy, but I knew it hadn't been there when I took the picture. I tried to tell myself it was a trick of the light, my imagination running wild, but the feeling of being watched intensified. Then came the whispers. At first they were so faint I thought I was imagining them. But they grew, just on the edge of audibility, like someone was breathing right next to my ear, saying, well, I couldn't quite make it out. One night I followed a scratching sound to a locked door in the hallway, pressed my ear against it, and there it was, clearer this time, a raspy, chilling whisper. Get out! That's when I started to get truly scared. Objects would move on their own. A book would tumble off a shelf. I'd feel these sudden drops in temperature, these icy cold spots in the middle of a room. My camera even malfunctioned, the lens just cracking for no reason. The whispers became more frequent, more insistent. You don't belong here. I called Daniel, trying to sound normal, but I could hear the worry in his voice. He urged me to leave, but I was stubborn. I felt like I was on the verge of understanding something, of capturing something truly unique with my camera. Then came the night I saw the shadow. I was in my bedroom, the only light the faint glow of the moon through the window. The door, which I was sure I had closed, slowly creaked open, and for a split second, there was this flicker of darkness in the doorway, a fleeting human-like shape that vanished as quickly as it appeared. I screamed. I actually screamed. The next morning, I practically ran to Mrs. Albright. I was a mess, telling her everything that had happened. That's when she finally told me the full story of the youngest Blackwood boy. He was troubled, she said, violent. There were rumors, terrible rumors, that he was possessed. His own parents, desperate and terrified, had locked him away in the West Wing, hoping to contain whatever darkness had taken hold of him. But it didn't work. The accident they spoke of, it was his confinement, his suffering. Armed with this horrifying truth, I went back to the manor. I had to see the West Wing. I managed to pry open the locked door, and the room inside was heartbreaking. Dust motes danced in the weak light, illuminating a child's rocking horse, its paint chipped and faded. The walls were covered in scratch marks, desperate, angry marks. The air was thick with a palpable sense of sadness and rage. That night was the worst. The presence, now that I knew its origin, felt more focused, more malevolent. Furniture flew across the room. I was physically pushed, shoved by unseen hands. The whispers were no longer faint. They were guttural growls. You will suffer as I suffered. But then something shifted in me. Instead of pure terror, I felt this wave of pity. This wasn't just a malevolent spirit. It was a being in immense pain. I remembered what Mrs. Albright had said about the family trying to contain the darkness. This wasn't just a haunting. It was the echo of a life brutally cut short, a spirit trapped in its suffering. I tried to speak to it, not with fear, but with empathy. I know you're in pain, I said, my voice trembling but firm. What happened to you was wrong. The violent activity faltered, just for a moment. The growls softened, replaced by a sorrowful whisper. Trapped, alone. I noticed a small, tarnished music box in the corner of the room. Almost instinctively, I picked it up and wound it. A haunting, melancholic melody filled the air. The presence seemed to react to it. The violent energy subsided, replaced by a heavy sense of grief. I stayed in that room for hours, playing the music box, speaking softly, acknowledging the boy's pain, the injustice he had endured. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the oppressive atmosphere began to lift. The cold receded. The shadows seemed to shrink away. The next morning, the manor felt different. The heavy, suffocating dread was gone, replaced by a profound silence, a stillness that felt peaceful. Daniel arrived, his face etched with worry until he saw I was okay. I couldn't explain everything, not really, but he saw the change in me. Before I left Oakhaven, I took one last photo of the West Wing room. The sunlight was streaming through the dusty window, illuminating the rocking horse. There was a sense of closure, a sense that something had finally been resolved. Back in my apartment, I looked through the photos, and in that final shot of the West Wing, just behind the rocking horse, there it was. Faint, translucent, but undeniably there. The image of a young boy, his face finally at peace. I still get chills thinking about Oakhaven Manor. It was a terrifying experience, but in a strange way, it was also cathartic. I went there to capture history with my camera, but I ended up witnessing a history that had been silenced for far too long. And maybe, just maybe, by acknowledging his suffering, I helped that trapped soul finally find some rest.